and its offshoot, heavy
Hey
metal,
guys,
have
I'm
been
gonna
accused
play
of promoting demonic symbolism.
Black
This began
Bits
with blues
today,
guitarist
and
Robert
I'm gonna
Johnson,
listen
who
to that
in
while we're playing
1947 was
because I
rumored
like
to have sold his soul to the
multitasking.
devil for musical talent. And as rock music evolved, bands like the Beatles
Donald
and the
Trump is
Rolling
the
Stones incorporated more
47th,
and more occult
47th President of
imagery.
the United
But it was
States.
with heavy
I
metal
predicted
that
that, by the way.
satanic and occult
And
themes became
I also
central.
predicted
Black
that
Sabbath, for
the
example,
Democrats
released
were
their
going to steal the
debut album
election,
in 1970
but
with a
they
dark,
didn't.
ominous cover and
So
tracks
maybe
filled
there
with
is hope
eerie
for us all
sounds.
after all.
Two of the most common symbols
Maybe
used by
there's
the
something
band were
good
the
about it.
Christian cross and the peace sign. But their black mass ritual
Well,
referencing
let's see what
name and
happens.
their role in creating a genre later associated with
Thought the
Satanism
whole thing,
made
the
them
whole US was going
accidental
to blow
Satan
up, but it
supporters.
didn't.
During the
Because
70s
the
and
Democrats
80s,
didn't steal the
despite
election
the
this
public
time.
outcry against bands like Iron
Or
Maiden,
they didn't steal the
Judas
election
Priest,
system.
Alice Cooper, and Motley Crue for contributing to the
That's a good
satanic
thing.
panic,
It's a good thing.
many of these groups didn't actually believe in what
It's
they
a
were
very good
singing
thing.
about. Luciferian imagery was just edgy and trendy. Bloodied goblets of hollowed skulls
Ow!
and severed goat heads were controversial, but they sold because the devil was just that profitable as a theme. And by the late 80s, merely pretending to worship Beelzebub was tame. Underground metal was getting darker and heavier. Bands like Morbid Angel, Venom, Celtic Frost, and Deicide focused on Sumerian deities, mythical sorcery, and ancient incantations. But Norway's first wave of black metal artists actually took Satanism way more seriously. Mayhem, formed in 1984, had a more aggressive and dangerous approach to the subject. Members would cut themselves on stage and impale animal heads on stakes. And with MTV growing in popularity around the 80s, we got even more heavy metal videos featuring outlandish themes for anybody, including children, to see. But when confronted, these artists always argued that their work was a form of artistic expression, a surreal or alternative way to discuss their struggles or talk about their dark pasts, that it was not endorsing or supporting evil. Maybe it was true then, but is it still true now, or is there a higher cost now to fame and fortune?
Why do you still do it? Why are you still in it?
Well, it goes back to the destiny thing. I made a dumb bargain with it, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end.
Where was your bargain?
To get where I am now.
Should I ask who you made the bargain
with the chief commander.
on this earth?
And this earth, and then in a world we can't see.
That's how I got introduced to the music industry. I swear I wanted to be like the Amy Grant of music, but it didn't work out, and so I sold my soul to the devil. Sold my soul to the devil.
Their words might be meant literally or metaphorically. The point is they are making these statements, which seem to align with a certain ideology. Even artists who claim to be atheists and not believe in a god or a devil use certain symbols in their art because they believe it signifies freedom.
Because the devil to me represents rock and roll, film, freedom, humor, essentially my life, my background, because it's so colored with so many blasphemous expressions. But I think that's one of the most common misconceptions that makes it so hard for people to fathom that there's obviously the biblical devil, and then you have the pop cultural devil. The pop cultural devil being very much a representative of freedom and intellectualism and liberation.
Yeah. What do you want? Subtly, subliminally, this message has been infiltrating the music industry for decades.
When did it become clear to you that this was a theology, that these people were working knowingly or not on behalf of evil, actual evil? When did that dawn on you?
Well, they got so arrogant with it, it seems like in maybe the last less than 10 years. I don't know what happened on their side. I guess they got the green light to go all the way down. And that's when we started seeing, for instance, Grammy Award performances where people are literally coming out wearing satanic symbols. They are carrying out, I guess they were mock seances, but I mean, it looked pretty real to me.
There's no denying that artists are getting bolder and bolder with a very specific message. If this truly is just artistic expression, why is every artist resorting to the same symbols? Every artist is trying to come up with different and unique ways to talk about pain and suffering. Instead, the audience is bombarded with just one message. Beyonce, for example, is known to incorporate certain hand gestures and symbols in her performances and videos. One of the most popular symbols is the triangle hand gesture, often associated with the Illuminati. Miley Cyrus, especially in the early 2010s, embraced an edgy persona that included a variety of provocative imagery, like the use of certain costumes, gestures, and props in her performances. Artists like Lady Gaga and Rihanna have also used similar provocative symbols in their music videos and stage sets. In May 2024, Madonna was accused of showcasing incredibly disturbing acts on stage without warning the audience. We're also getting similar messages in milder ways. For example, in Billie Eilish's song, All the Good Girls Go to Hell, she sings about wanting the devil on her team, implying that dark forces are more powerful and more appealing. And yes, these lyrics could just be metaphorical. That is irrelevant, because these lyrics still contribute to a certain belief that goodness and God are not as powerful or influential as negative forces. So, is the industry just lacking new and fresh ways to talk about darker themes? Or are they stuck on one particular symbol for a reason?
Why are they pushing Satan worship on television?
Because they're doing the work of their father, just like I am.
Wow. And there's kind of no denying. I mean, they're not getting richer by pushing satanic symbols.
Sure they are. Yeah, because the industry, the way those movie industries, music industries, all of that, now not everybody in those industries obviously is, some kind of a Satan worshiper or something, but there's a lot of that in there. They get rewarded for that. People that really serve the Father of Lies, they get rewarded by him when they proclaim his word and do what he tells them to do.
This negative messaging has better press. Stars like Beyonce, Eminem, Doja Cat, Sam Smith, and others have huge record labels backing up their provocative lyrics and videos, giving them money and expansive reach to ensure their songs stay on top of the charts. All of this has led to the misconception that negative forces
massive record labels, massive radio play, massive budgets to push and promote and manipulate media and get his song out there. These guys have all these massive budgets. The entertainment value, the ability to produce those things at such a high level, it's impossible to look away from it. It's like boom, pow, huge, special effects, all this stuff, and everybody's just mesmerized, and it's going right into them.
Biblically speaking, of course, dark forces are not powerful. In Scripture, even when Satan wanted to test Job, he had to ask God for permission first. This highlights that evil is not on par with the ultimate good. It's not even close. But the second big issue here is that the idea of Satanism is essentially about extreme selfishness. It says you can be your own God, which, according to the Bible, is simply not true. The Bible says we are made in God's image and are accountable to Him. Aleister Crowley, a well-known occultist, famously said, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law," meaning, do whatever makes you happy and follow your own truth. In contrast, the Bible says to fear God and keep His commandments. Neither you nor the devil is God, but each person is quickly becoming the center of their own universe instead of embracing humility and groundedness. This idea is not new. It goes back to Genesis 3, where Satan, in the form of a serpent, lied to Eve about what would happen if she ate the forbidden fruit. He said, "For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, you will be like God, knowing good and evil." This was a direct lie. Their eyes were opened in a way, but not by God. They were broken by sin. And similar lies are told to artists today, but instead of knowledge, they are promised unlimited wealth and influence. And with that influence, artists can continue to promote everything wrong, taboo, or perverse as edgy or trendy. It's a self-feeding machine. The more success these artists get, the the more people get encouraged to perform provocative acts to achieve that success. And it goes on. The machine pretends to be your friend and your family, luring you over to the dark side. And now, some artists are exposing it.
When these people come and deal with you, right? He said these people try to come and deal with you on a friendship level, and it's very calculated. It's done intended to disarm you, to make you get comfortable with these people and allow their suggestions in and try to make you forget that this is business.
How they kind of blur the lines between business and friends and family, even your family. So, you gotta be like, we're not family. The minute I can't provide the services, I ain't your brother no more, you know what I'm saying?
Rappers Ransom and Paul Kane sat down to talk about things less talked about concerning the business of music. How people's friendly demeanor is really a facade to further business interests. And how, if you want to protect yourself, strict boundaries are necessary. The podcast also touched on whether success in the industry is possible without playing these games. And Ransom affirmed that it is possible, but not easy. He said that while some artists might play along to get ahead, it's also possible to achieve success without compromising personal principles. Of course, that's the longer road, and not the most exciting for artists who have gone big. Fortunately, though, once upon a time, critics of off-the-rails pop stars were seen as cool or aspirational.
Yeah, I'll get right on that.
Today, even younger millennials and Gen Z are seeing the perverted nature of music artists.
Like she's dressing up like the devil at every event she attends. She's even on her occupation, and it's just getting very out of hand.
Younger people also want less sexualized content in movies and are gravitating towards more wholesome songs and films, thanks in part to other creators making an effort to produce that content. Creators like John Rich, who recently released a song called Revelation, which talks about John's words and more importantly, it talks about how he had to make a video that would appeal to an audience that is used to high-budget, overproduced music videos.
And so Revelation is the other side of that. That's why I went to such extremes with this video, because I wanted to compete visually with what people are used to seeing. I didn't want it to be like some one-dimensional looking thing. I wanted it to be up to the level to what people are used to seeing. If we're going to combat, if we're going to present both sides, play at a high level. Bring it at a high level. And that's why we went so far with it.
And John Rich doesn't have the same machines backing him up as Lil Nas X or Eminem. What John has is a P.O. box called Rich Records LLC. He's the president, founder, and sole employee of this label. He doesn't have anyone pushing his songs. It's all about people who hear it, and if they like it, share it with others. Promoting a song without the help of his music machine requires more outreach and effort on his part. But for him, that's a better way to go about it than, essentially, selling his soul to get his music out there. And it makes sense, because his message doesn't align with the industry's main agenda. And if it doesn't align, it's gone, as explained by Lil Nas X himself. But the kicker is, even redemption becomes a marketing ploy. In January of 2024, Lil Nas X started posting a series of TikToks about exposing the music industry, which was apparently forcing him to spread specific messages through his music. He used religious imagery, including posing himself as Jesus Christ. In all of these messages, placing himself as the person who would bring down the industry. His comments were flooded with supportive messages, wishing him well and calling him back to the side of God. And after the controversy with his earlier music videos, this would be a welcome change. After garnering tons of online support for his new music, promising a complete rebrand, when the J. Christ music video finally dropped, it was hardly what people expected. It wasn't gospel. It wasn't respectful.
With ease.
And it didn't expose anything about the industry. But it did tell us things like redemption and forgiveness are jokes to the music machine. And if we're waiting for a change, we'll be waiting forever. Possibly the best thing we can do is be more mindful of the music we consume. and understand the subliminal messages being peddled to us. Because even if the younger generation is ready to move on to music with better values, it will always be harder to discover that art compared to what the mainstream media
Enjoy toying with lesser spellcasters. I captured
while living in the shadowy fringe of others. Nevertheless, the common thread seems to connect all shamans across the planet, an awakening to other orders of reality, the experience of ecstasy, and an opening of visionary realms form the essence of the shamanic mission. Shamanism is one of the oldest, if not the oldest system of healing in the world. It forms the prototype from which other forms of healing have derived, such as modern psychotherapy, condition, and despite the cultural differences around the world, the deepest structure appears to remain. They are archetypes, primordial images of spiritual presence of nature that regularly coordinate. The origin of shamanism inevitably links it to the animal world. The shaman identifies the unclaimed creatures which provide shelter. They sort of and animal customs all play an important role. Each time a shaman succeeds in sharing in the animal mode of being, he reestablishes the situation that existed in mythical times, when the divorce between man and the animal world had not yet occurred. Arctic explorer Neil Rasmussen met with an Eskimo shaman who stated, "The greatest peril of life lies in the fact that human form consists of all the creatures that come to kill us, all those who have to slow down and destroy to make clothes for themselves, are souls that do not pass through the body, or trust that will be pacified unless they revenge themselves on us for taking their souls." For the shaman, is a living force within. This is known as animism. This life force or mana is conceived of as a divine force which permeates all. Just as the human body is connected to the soul, so too are all living beings connected by the anima mundi, world soul. For the shamans, depression, emptiness, lack of energy, anxiety, apathy, etc. are referred to as loss of soul, one of the most feared illnesses in primitive civilizations. The word primitive is not used to refer to an obsolete or superstitious way of life as it may be used today. Far from it. In fact, primitive people have a much deeper contact with nature and the unconscious, which modern people generally lack. If not balanced, this one-sidedness often results in neurosis and psychic dissociation. Swiss psychiatrist and psychologist Carl Jung writes, "There are no longer any gods whom we can invoke to help us. The great religions of the world suffer from increasing anemia, because the helpful noumena have fled from the woods, rivers and mountains, and from animals, and the god-men have disappeared underground into the unconscious. There we fool ourselves that they lead an ignominious existence among the relics of our past. Our present lives are dominated by the goddess Reason, who is our greatest and most tragic illusion. By the aid of reason, we assure ourselves we have conquered nature. We do not yet understand that the discovery of the unconscious means an enormous spiritual task which must be accomplished if we wish to preserve our civilization. To recover our lost soul, we must reconnect with the sacred aspects of the natural and imaginary worlds. At some point in our lives, we all experience a call to adventure that disrupts the safety of our ordinary world. This inner voyage occurs especially during an existential crisis, usually because of spiritual, physical, or psychological illness. In order to be healed, one must become a healer. When we are thrown into a life crisis, our lives turn into chaos and confusion. We may not be aware why, but still feel that something is not right. The unconscious is in a state of massa confusa, a confusing mass or inner chaos, because we have not dealt with its contents, or rather repressed them. This is the soul's cry for growth. It is what the alchemists call nigredo, or the dark night of the soul, a period of mortification and putrefaction that is a prerequisite for obtaining the stone. Like the alchemists who go through a psychologically transformative process of turning lead into gold, the shaman too returns chaos into existential crisis. The shaman is a master of the sacred. He is a medicine man, wizard, or seer who attempts to restore one's psychic ability. This is healing in its most fundamental form. The shaman is one who knows, one who has experienced and glimpsed the other world, revealed through an altered state of consciousness. The recruitment of a shaman can be through inheritance, or most commonly in the form of a occurring in a visionary dream in which he or she experiences a theophany, encounter with a deity, or through sickness, be cured by medicine. It is rooted in a personal experience of vocation. This is not just a strong inclination to follow a particular activity or career, but a divine call to religious life, to becoming a healer of the human soul, such as entering into priesthood. The priest is an archetypal variant of the shaman. So too is the psychotherapist. Jungian analyst Marie-Louise von Franz writes, the roots of both priesthood and psychotherapy lie in the primitive phenomenon of shamanism and the existence of medicine men. Jung had carved an inscription above the door of his house, which stated, Vocatus ad quenum vocatus, Deus aderit. Cold or not cold, God will be present. This was to remind his patients of their true vocation, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. When the call of the neophyte or initiate is recognized by the master shaman, the archetypal wise old man, he must undergo the first trials. Thus begins the search for his lost soul in the world of spirits, or what we would call in psychological terms the archetypal contents of the unconscious. The withdrawal into solitude through sickness opens the way for the initiation to take place. It is the beginning of a visionary journey in which the initiate soul moves into the non-material realm and encounters spirits, malignant and benign. The approach to this infinite mystery is made alone. Physical, solitary, and silent natures are the ones that register most deeply with the unconscious. When our ego attitude changes in response to our dreams and visions, the unconscious responds. The unconscious is like a mirror. The face we turn towards it is reflected back to us. Hostility lends it a threatening aspect. Friendliness softens its features. The journey to become a shaman can take years. If the initiate passes the trials and is approved by the spirits, he or she becomes a shaman. The central element is the death and symbolic resurrection of the neophyte. After such an experience, the shaman can understand the secret language of spiritual language. He has access to a region that is sacred, not accessible to other members of the community. The shaman has overcome death and is no longer the same person as before. To have contact with the dead signifies being dead himself. The shaman must die so that he may meet the souls of the dead and receive their teaching. For the dead know everything. As such, he possesses vital information for the sick. The shaman himself heals, or rather mediates the healing of the patient with the divine powers. This is what distinguishes the shaman from the neurotic person, who is unable to find a
If you're
cure.
sure that's what you want.
One of the main works of the shaman is to encounter and retrieve the lost or stolen souls of his people, establishing a soul-to-soul connection. The shaman can also encounter and guide the souls of the dead, human or animal. He is responsible for the religious direction of a community and guards its soul. This is the sign of a true shamanic vocation, a spiritual condition in which one temporarily transcends the profane condition of humanity. The neophyte is not completely alone during his journey. He often has the help of spirits with animal form, such as a bear, eagle, wolf, fox, deer, etc. These act as tutelary figures or psychopowers, guiding one through the untamed lands, where one must face the most strenuous of all ordeals, initiatory rites necessary to become a shaman. For the Ainu shamans of Japan, the world is inhabited by kami, or spirits. Animals are considered gods in disguise, who live invisible to human eyes, but who also share a common territory with humans. Von Franz writes, magical animals are often the symbols of the self. In the north, it is usually the bear who is the embodiment of the self for the shaman, because he's a great nature deity. The shaman finds his healing powers and creativity from the bear. In Africa, lions and elephants represent the self, and sometimes also other magical animals who embody the supreme divine power of the psyche and nature. From the fact that the self appears in animal form in the dreams and visions of medicine men and creative individuals, it is clear that it is first perceived as a purely instinctive, unconscious force, greater and more powerful than the ego, but entirely unconscious. It embodies the complete mystery of nature, yet does not possess the light of human consciousness. Just as animals have no need to be taught their instinctive activities, so too do we possess primordial psychic patterns and repeat them spontaneously, independently of any teaching. The path towards the self consists in bringing these unconscious contents into consciousness, balancing our instinctual animal nature with a human and ethical way of life. Shamans bring their inner life into consciousness by crafting sacred objects, musical instruments, clothing, etc., all of which have a symbolic meaning and are used in rituals. The shaman passes from one cosmic realm to another, from the earth to the sky, or from the earth to the underworld. Thus, there are three worlds in the shamanic cosmos. The middle world is the ordinary world as we know it. The underworld is a dangerous and terrifying